It's a movie. You have to update. To keep it in the 80s, that'd be great for the 25 of you on the internet. You know, but for the world, it's like, you cannot have Megatron as a gun.
Similar to many IPs aimed at kids during the 80s to early 2000s, studios and creatives often have a tendency to reimagine products originally aimed at a younger demographic into adult blockbusters. For instance, Transformers, one of the most successful children's IPs from the 80s, underwent a similar transformation when it was adapted into the 2007 film directed by Michael Bay. Gone were the vibrant visuals and playful characters. Instead, they were replaced by gritty, badass robots capable of swearing, engaging in destructive actions, and even urinating on people.
Bumblebee, stop lubricating the man.
Bay took the cartoonish world of the Transformers and transplanted them into a contemporary and more grounded setting, one that took itself fairly seriously and aimed for a mature tone. This shift helped the larger-than-life characters to stand out significantly in the film. Naturally, translating cartoonish characters like the Transformers into a more realistic world required significant changes to their designs. Fortunately, Michael Bay and the production team had unique ideas on how to bring these characters to life on the big screen.
Yeah, when I was updating the robots, they just didn't understand why I didn't take the cartoon version of the robot design and just make it for the big screen. And I'm like, that's the equivalent of like the Marshmallow Man in Ghostbusters, okay? It just, they're so boxy. I would love to do that for the fans. Just show a 35-foot tall, put it in a real environment in a movie, and just show how lame it would look, you know? So these are extremely complex robots, and I would listen to the fans, but you know, because you've got to respect the franchise, but you still have to make your own movie.
When it comes to how the Transformers are typically designed, they always have a very particular design approach. The characters are typically made up of simple shapes. These shapes typically consist of squares and rectangles. There's many reasons why the designs are primarily square and rectangles, ranging from ease of manufacturing, as the whole point of Transformers is to, well, transform. So you want to make the process of doing so simple. And just in general, square shapes are what we typically associate with robots. Now, these square looks for the Transformers are pretty universal across the entire IP. When it comes to translating the Transformers into live action, perhaps Bay felt that the more basic designs would not work, as he ditched them in favor of something more real. You can see this perfectly in the way the faces of the Transformers were approached. When you take a look at how they look facially in the original cartoon and toys, Transformers typically look much more human in their faces, albeit more rigid and square. Perhaps this would have been too uncanny in live action, as the Transformers in Bay's film appear more unnatural. They no longer look human, and instead look like a machine's attempt to recreate a semblance or an idea of a face by shaping metal. This can be seen with Bumblebee, whose early designs attempt to look more accurate to his original look, but ultimately evolve into something more unique and less human looking. The same can be said for characters like Megatron, whose face in the final film is more sharp, angular, and insect-like, although this face started off with a slight resemblance to his original look. Clearly, the artists wanted the character to look more scary, as perhaps his traditional design did not do the job. The only outliers to this are Jazz and Optimus Prime, as generally, I'd say the artistic development of their faces wasn't a hugely radical departure. This is especially true for Optimus Prime, whose faces don't generally stray far from each other, and some actually look pretty cool even if they take some creative liberties. There were attempts to translate a semblance of the original looks into the films. Just take a look at these pieces of concept art. Here you can tell that the Transformers definitely appear closer to their looks in the cartoons and toys. They're not direct translations of those looks, as they still lean a bit towards realism, but in terms of balancing the cartoonish and the real, these were the best ones yet. So it was clear that the filmmakers weren't gonna use the original Transformers looks from the 80s show. Instead, the Transformers had to work within this grounded world Bay was creating, and these looks just weren't gonna cut it. Early on in the film's development, Bay would bring on a team of artists to visualize what the Transformers would look like in the film. Of course, since the Transformers are so complicated in their looks, it's hard to say for sure if there was a general design evolution in artistic approach. What I mean is that there's no real radical difference between the art and how they look like in the final film, although there are some differences that are worth pointing out. These artworks, for example, illustrated by Feng Zhu, have a distinctively different type of look than we're used to. The Transformers here almost look clean in a way. There's a distinct and clear flow in how their robot parts are brought together. They're not one clean form, as there is a kind of disjointedness to them. This can be seen with the many holes littered throughout their robot bodies, but parts of their robot forms are also beautiful and well constructed. It's almost as if some kind of artisan built them. These robot designs are surreal and makes them appear even more otherworldly when compared to the rest of their surroundings. The best design similarity I can come up with is Art Deco and even robots present in old 1900s pulp magazines. There's one thing I'd like to mention. In these robot designs, you can't actually see any vehicle parts present on the robots, and may hint at an idea the creatives had for the transformations these robots would employ. Other concepts would be more accurate to what we'd expect the Transformers to look like in this world. The Transformers take on more realistic proportions, with an amalgamation of metal creating these humanoid forms. Ultimately, it's these designs that would form the ones we see in the final film. But why do the Transformers look like this? Again, it was for the purpose of realism. The whole point of the Transformers is to, well, transform. And since Bay wanted to move away from their traditional appearance, they needed to find a way to make the transformations believable through a radically different look. The reason the Transformers look so complicated is because Bay wanted every part of the Transformers' body to correlate with the vehicle they're based on. When the Transformers transform, it has to look believable to the audience. Every piece of the vehicle, down to the smallest detail, has to realistically bend and fold into the robot without any kind of unbelievable size shifting. So as a result, many vehicle parts have to be present somewhere on the Transformer, resulting in these designs you see in the film.
Every single transformation in this movie is done as if these transformations were actually taking place in real space and in real time.
There's not too many people in the world that could have figured this out. You know, it takes a real genius to be able to disassemble these things and put them back together in a different shape.
Yeah, we didn't want to have metal actually change shape. We wanted to find a place for it on the vehicle and find a place for it that corresponded with the robot.
We would really play to camera, like have all the important pieces show up, move, rotate, and go back, while we were shuffling a bunch of cards behind the scene.
It's worth noting that early on, there was an idea to have the Transformers morph instead of transform. When I say morph, I mean the vehicle parts essentially disappear into the robots. You can see this perfectly in this concept of Optimus Prime, where the truck wheels unravel and uncoil itself into Prime's legs. The idea of morphing would be abandoned in favor of traditional transformations.
Oh.